Well, Craig, here we are at your ALUS project. You did this around this time last year.
This farm's been on my wife's land for 90 years, and I had the privilege a couple of years ago to be able to buy into this property and start developing it, and the ALUS program was a good fit for that.
Where are you from originally? That accent is not Kivasville or Spruceview accent.
No, it's not. Originally from New Zealand,
okay.
So this type of stuff is pretty common in New Zealand for rotational grazing and fencing off waterways and looking after the land as much as you can.
So is that part of the goal here, is to get into more on the rotational grazing side?
Absolutely, yeah. With such a short growing season here in Canada and Alberta especially, I think it makes sense to rotational graze and use the most out of your grass while it's in production.
Yep. What we're doing with ALUS is paying producers for your management that increases ecosystem services from the land. With our program at the moment, we're funding typically at 75% of cash costs on a fencing project or a watering system project. Do you find in your work, because I mean you're working all over central Alberta and beyond, do you find people talking about the ALUS program in this county or elsewhere?
Yeah, I do, and I have quite a few people asking me as a fencer. They tell me they've got a wet area to fence off and they're not sure how to go about it or what to do, and I've referred a few people to the ALUS program. And it's good now that I've done the ALUS program myself and I can back it up and say, yeah, it's a good program.
Yeah.
For me, with the funding that the county gave me and the government gave me, definitely gave me more of an incentive to put the system in. It's something I always wanted to do, but it definitely helped with the cost, and the cost sharing program was great. When I looked into doing the system and the whole program, I took the bird's eye view and I started mapping out how I wanted to split up my pastures and how I wanted to manage the water to those pastures. Because there's no point putting a bunch of fences in and then only having one trough or having to move that trough each time. And with Sundog Solar, they showed me the water system on a pressure system and a pipeline.
Okay.
And it's a very basic system with a small pressure pump. Everything's run off solar, and it allows me to split up the multiple pastures. Currently I'm out of 2 troughs. I'm watering cows into 4 pastures, and with a couple of easy temporary electric tape fencing, I can add that to 5 or 6 pastures easily, and add troughs if I want to add more to it. When it's time to pull the cows out of here and in the winter, I am going to run an air line through it just to blow everything out so it doesn't freeze, and hook it up again next spring and carry on.
Your farm has Crooked Creek going through it. And you're pumping directly from the creek?
Just off the edge of the creek, yep. So I'm sucking nice clean water each time for the cows. I've got it deep enough so it's not sucking any mud, and the cows don't have to travel too far for water.
How long was the fence that you built along the creek?
Yeah, the fence was a full half mile for the quarter, to do the full quarter, but I followed the creek so it added a few more metres, so I'm around 940 metres for the fence, and then about 200 metres for each cross fence that I put into where the existing fence already was here in this pasture.
And I see the fence that you built along the creek, like you did set it back quite a good distance from the creek. Roughly how far do you figure you are from the creek?
I'm a little over 100 feet from the creek.
Okay.
So I wanted to allow a bit of room just in case cows got through or wanted to push through, but wildlife to walk the creek and along the edge and stay off the fence as much as they could.
Yeah, any other benefits you've seen since you've done the project?
Well, for sure, this year was actually a really good year to test this program out with how dry it's been. I've rotated the cattle mainly on this lower land the whole summer, with only a couple of times putting them up on the higher ground, and it's been able to rejuvenate the grasses a lot better. So the cattle are getting into fresh grass. They're doing better on it. The weeds are not going to come up as bad because they're not chewing off the good areas and overgrazing that.
Right.
And I'm actually looking at increasing another 10 pair.
Okay.
There's 25 cow-calf pairs on here this year. I want to increase it to 35. And I think easily it'll handle that with the rotational grazing.
So when you first heard about the ALUS program, what steps did you do to get involved with ALUS?
I made a phone call to yourself, told you what I wanted to do and where my property was and the creeks that were situated in it. You sent me some forms via email. I filled out those forms via email, sent them back to you, and a few conversations later we had a plan and got at it. So it was very simple. The initial cost might be a little bit, but the county's helping with that. But your long-term gains are going to be huge.